Hello and welcome, Reanimators. This is the 70th episode of Reanimated, the podcast about all things undead and zombified. My name is Stuart Tiffin, and I am joined by my inimitable co-host, H.A. Conrad. How are you doing this morning?
Inimitably.
Oh, not even sure what that would look like. You could just be patting your head and rubbing your tummy at the same time, for all I know.
I could be. I could be.
So we are here today on this fine Saturday morning to discuss the film 28 Weeks Later.
Hmm.
And
Not to be confused with the film 28 Weeks, Sandra Bullock.
that was 28 days.
Was it 28 days?
Yeah. Yeah, that was my whole confusion with the first.
Well, it was just very funny because anytime you pulled it up, the Sandra Bullock crap would come up. But anyway, I digress. It was not a very funny joke in any case. But 28 weeks later, yes.
28 Weeks Later. Directed, I forget his name. Some Italian guy? French guy?
Juan Carlos Fresnadillo.
Spanish, perhaps.
But it was, it was co-produced by Alex Garland and, of course, Danny Boyle.
Yeah.
And they even said they co-directed, but anyway, I think just to attach their names to this, because I would imagine fans would be somewhat annoyed that Danny Boyle was not as associated with this as they probably would have liked him to be.
Which is probably the truth.
Hmm.
So we're going to be talking about that film, and we got a couple of bits of zombie news, and of course, this is all because of our good old pals out down there at Squarespace, and they're the all-in-one platform, make it easy to create your own website, and if you'd like to make a website with Squarespace, and it's your first time, you can use our offer code of zombie at checkout, and you'll get 10% off. So there. So today, in the news, got a couple of little bits and bobs, as they say. First up is a former NFL. Yeah, well, an NFL, a couple of NFL guys have started a zombie apocalypse survival camp, and well, it's only $20,000 for one day of instruction, but it's $20,000 for one day of instruction from two guys in the NFL. So some people would pay for that.
Perhaps, although I would have to say the sort of teaser photo that opens up the article that you found made me like laugh out loud.
That dude's like doing a haka or something.
I
Yeah,
don't know what he's doing.
it doesn't really. Maybe it's just a strength training position, but he's just doing a weird squat. And I don't know that zombies need to be squatted at, but you know.
But some spear throwing, you can learn all about that. But yeah, this is really strange. So anyway,
So anyway, 20 grand one day with two linemen. Basically, they're big guys. I
they
don't know
are
that
big
they'll
guys.
ever like nobody who just go into this class could necessarily you know uh, inherit all of their traits of terrifyingness, but pay the money, see what happens.
Yeah, and then
Maybe
tell us.
maybe they'll pump you full of steroids.
And then there was a tiny little teaser for Fear the Walking Dead. What do you think about the title? Do you think, I mean, clearly they're trying to capitalize on the Walking Dead name, and so they had to somehow get it in there, but doesn't it feel kind of strange?
I don't like it. No,
I think it's just terrible. It
I
just come up with something else,
come up with something completely different. Yeah.
right?
The Walking, you don't need the name The Walking Dead to inspire the following that The Walking Dead has. I feel like you could come up
I
with a name that just maybe they just couldn't come up with anything else that
you,
was good.
you could have just put Kirkman's spinoff or something like that, and it would have been fine.
Yeah.
But anyway, the teaser just gives you a little taste. I'm sure they will be leaking these things as the months to come. But I'm interested to see where they go with this. But again, it's been, to me, it's been very slow in getting any sort of an idea of what this is about. And to me, it doesn't create anticipation. It's sort of creating boredom with how little information we have. But perhaps that's just me.
Yeah, I am.
Of course, I will watch it. There's no question about that. But
I
it's
assume that they're in full production mode right now too. Like all they've done is a pilot, right? At
right,
least that
right.
was the last thing we heard. And then they're supposed to be airing this summer. So I
Mm-hmm.
assume they have to. They're just like making this show at the moment.
Right.
So
But
it's
still,
probably
you have a, yeah, but you must have a little bit more because if you film
yeah,
the pilot, then you've got enough to give people more than what they've been giving. But
yeah.
again, maybe they're still figuring out some of the fundamentals. And, in other interpretations of zombie news, I found this little review of a Romeo and Juliet zombie style. So it's called R and J and Z, and it was performed at the New Ohio Theater, written by Melody Bates, who is the writer performer, and supposedly it was pretty good. I saw a couple of reviews of this,
Musical?
but I don't know if it's a musical. I think it's just a different take on it. But it's at least sort of interesting. I don't know if it's going to make the Shakespeare in the Park roster, but you know, it just modernizes it a little bit.
Just a little bit, but not
Yeah,
too much. And the New York Times has to put in the third paragraph, the Z in the title stands for zombies.
I know. Just in case you didn't know,
In the
um,
third paragraph.
I know. I
Like
know.
we hadn't picked up on it by that point. But okay.
Right,
Thanks, New York
right.
Times.
But anyway, I the end line though, as Romeo says, double suicide and reanimation creates a bond that is too hard to break. Sigh. Anyway, um, there you have it. And then lastly, there was this little prank thing going around, which I thought was very silly. We'll put up the video, but it's this group of people that basically dress up as zombies and go running around to see what the public think of them.
I'm
Did
getting
you
kind
get?
of tired of these videos.
I am too. Although I have to say, especially in the footage where this group of people runs in the park, I think that the people in the park had the good instincts just to run. So perhaps all this, all of our zombie films and awareness, people know what to do in a zombie apocalypse now.
This has just been a giant awareness campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So they'll know what to do. But yeah, and what I thought was really funny, it's like they didn't even have enough footage to really fill out. It's like a 3-minute video or something like that, but they didn't even have enough fit. If you notice, they like do a loop and they repeat a lot of the scenes. They're just like splicing it in. So anyway, there you have it. So a little bit light on the Z News this week, but that leaves us more than enough time to chat about 28 weeks later.
But
So
what have you been up to, HA?
this week,
In general?
oh, um, celebrated the original Zombie Day last weekend. That's
Yeah.
about it. Caught Furious 7, which was even more furious than the last.
So much
Several
fury.
movies. There's a lot of fury. There are a lot of ridiculous stunts. Did you happen to catch it? You haven't been to the
No,
movies
I
in a
don't get to
while.
go to the movies. No,
Um,
maybe one day.
yeah. But no, nothing too exciting other than that. Oh, I was catching the new Daredevil.
Oh God, yeah, I'm on episode 4 right now.
Yeah,
It's a hell of a show.
it's really really good.
It's really
So
brutal.
it is, but it's really well done, and especially for, I mean, Netflix, I have to say, is knocking it out of the park with generally most of the series. I mean, they've got some clunkers in there, but they've been doing pretty well. This is the production value of this. The choreography is pretty good. It definitely is making up for that terrible film with Ben
Hmm.
Affleck.
Hmm.
So yeah. What
Yeah,
have you been up to?
I've been looking for if they're going to use his like blind vision, but they're staying away from that. You know,
Yeah, I was wondering about that too.
it's good.
But did you ever follow this graphic novel at all? Because it wasn't really on my rotation.
Never, no.
So, but it's, I actually, the only thing I'm really bothered by is his glasses. I don't like how they look.
I think that is canon though, at least based on the first movie and now this one. They
They're
seem
supposed
it,
to,
they seem to be
yeah,
consistent. Is all.
terrible stylistically anyway.
Yeah. Me not too much. Going to Fish Fest today. Fish Fest.
Like the band,
No,
or like
no,
fishing.
like the animals. It's a festival on the coast where, in honor of the fishermen,
Hmm.
where people build wooden boats in 3 hours and then have to race in them. And there's a, I don't know, the Coast Guard comes and does some presentations.
How is the drought treating you? So are you really feeling the effects of the water
We're still in
shortage?
the rainy season, so no, we're not feeling it yet. But the governor did just pass a 25% mandatory water cutback thing. I mean, it was 20% voluntarily
Right.
right now anyway. So this is going to change some stuff on a grand scale. But
So do they even? Because you can't really monitor that, or can you?
I mean, you get billed based on your water
Oh,
usage. Yeah, so it's
okay.
it's it's noticeable.
Hmm.
It's just that people have to stop watering their damn yards.
Well, if you think
That'll make
about
a
it,
huge difference, you know.
if you
Like,
think about it, the lawn idea is so insane anyway. It doesn't
mhm.
do anything for anybody. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
at least one or two houses in my neighborhood have replaced grass with AstroTurf, which you might think, oh my God, how bad? But then, I mean, they will look weird when they're the only people with green lawns and everybody else has brown
Brown
ones.
lawns, yeah.
But yeah, I kind of think that front yards are just dumb
Agreed.
because
And they,
you never spend any time in them anyway, or not if you're classy.
well, and they also don't really, I don't know.
They're
They
just
don't,
pride projects, you know.
right. And you have to have a lot of work with them.
Yeah,
I just don't have that kind of energy. But,
yeah.
you know, hydroponics, man. Wave of the future.
You know who does have a lot of energy?
Who?
Damn it, what's his character name? I forget.
All I can think is Robert Carlyle.
Robert Carlyle, exactly. That dude has a ticker that keeps on clicking, or I don't know what he does. Yeah. So now that we've caught up on our lives and California's regrettable drought, um, this film, I liked it the first time I saw it.
Yeah.
I think the second time I
Don.
saw it, I
Don
liked
is
it a
his
little
name.
less.
Sorry.
Dawn.
Don, Don.
And the second time I liked it a little less than the third time. Well, you know, whenever you watch it with an eye for criticism, you know, you're gonna pick out those stuff, but it's difficult to balance. But so I still think that this is a fine zombie movie with a good budget and a good cast. I think that's my like high level review.
Yeah, I had a similar feeling to you, although I feel like the first time I watched it, um, well, look, I mean, you and I talked a very, very long time about 28 days later. Clearly, we love that. And when I heard that this was coming out, I was very skeptical because I just think so much of what made 28 Days Later unique and good and amazing is a lot of the surprise elements and the unveiling of this world.
Hmm.
And my concern with this particular sequel was, what do you do with this? Because so much of it is the exposition in the first film about what's going on and the mystery about what's going on and what happens when the civilization collapses in London. Um, and they did a lot of the things I was afraid they were going to do in this film, which is and you're right, they had a good budget, much better production value than the first film,
Hmm.
great cast, and I would say the sequences, the action sequences, and everything it really is a decent film. But I think by comparing it to the first one, I was just never going to be really happy with it. But watching it for this show, I was reminded about the good points more than the bad points. So a little bit different from your take on it.
Yeah. Um.
Probably because we've also watched some really, really bad films in this genre. and
Well,
this
there's
one
that.
and this one I'm just like, well, if you think about it, put it in the playing field with some of the things that we've seen. They did a pretty good job on a lot of the parts of this. So, and the parts that they didn't, I felt like were really unnecessary for them, but we can chat about that a little bit further.
Yeah. So, I really like the open. I feel like I enjoyed the opening scene of this film, and
The opening was the strongest part.
yeah, it does. However, and that this film kind of throws out some of the canon from the first film, which is
Yeah.
that they don't come out during the day,
Hmm.
but they're out during the day. This whole movie, basically, there's like a long night section of the film, but like the very first scene, they're basically you think it's nighttime based on the how dark it is inside, but it turns out it's totally broad daylight, and that the infected are right outside. So it doesn't really make sense.
Well, they do. I mean, in 28 Days Later, when he finds them in the church,
Yeah,
they don't like to come out during the day, but if really excited, they will.
but that was dusk too.
I guess so. But you're right. That is part of it, I suppose. So they messed with that canon right off the bat. The other thing,
Right.
did you notice suddenly they are all, I mean, the rage virus gave them a lot of adrenaline and more strength, but here it feels like they have almost superpowers.
The way they break through
Right.
the barricades. Yeah, yeah, that's true because they come right through all the barricaded doors and windows.
Which
But
feels a little, I mean, I could see if there was enough of them or whatever, maybe they could break through, but not as quickly as they do in this particular instance. But of course, it wouldn't be quite as dramatic if it was a slow invasion.
so one of the things that this opening scene also tries to do is set up Dawn as a flawed character, like a coward, if you will. I don't buy it. Do you buy this scenario that first of all his wife insists on them opening the door for someone who's outside making a lot of noise, and secondly that there's nothing that he could have done other than sacrifice himself and maybe not even have saved them uh, at the when they're upstairs.
Well, I think that the idea is because okay, whenever you think about and not not saying that a zombie apocalypse could happen, but whenever you think about some crazy incident like this happening, you would like to think that you would do the brave thing and give up your life for your loved one or save them or whatever. And he doesn't here, so I think it actually is probably the more human reaction, which is self-preservation. So I don't, but I would still imagine that no matter what the circumstance, if this happened to you, even if you saw them being attacked and knew that there was no way to save them, you're still going to feel an enormous amount of guilt about it,
Yeah.
no matter what the circumstance was. So even if there was absolutely nothing you could do other than run, you're still going to feel incredibly guilty no matter what.
Yeah. I just
So I don't know, are you saying like how they set him up as a character that way?
I'm
Or
saying that the actual scenario of him on one side of a room near the stairs and her having cornered herself because she's chasing this kid she doesn't know.
right.
And then she's like, "No, you're supposed to save me," is the implication, and
Yeah,
her
it's
banging
weird.
on the windows. She put herself in that situation, and he literally cannot get to her without physically attacking some infected, and he doesn't have a weapon. He was downstairs fighting hand to hand with infected with a pry bar, or like a tire iron when they first broke in. He was the only one fighting, and now we're supposed to think, oh, he's a terrible person because he's just going to run for it when the alternative is he could just wade in, and I don't buy that.
Well,
But
I didn't think that he did anything wrong. I mean, that's like
yeah,
I don't think that was, I think it was one of those things that they were trying to set up. It was a really hard, awful choice. But the most of the guilt that he's feeling is just, I mean,
do you really feel like
you're not gonna feel good no matter what, seeing your
no?
loved one and knowing that there's like when he sees her up in the window and she's still there.
Do you really feel like that's what the movie's trying to tell us, though, is that he feels guilty, not that the way his children react later? Everything is coming at him like he made the wrong choice in this film.
Right.
And it's not just his like inner monologue. I would,
No,
which we,
it's true. And then they, the fact that he's turned into an infected, sort of almost as a retribution or payment for being
yeah.
a coward. I mean, that's sort of the implication. So
The
you're right on
movie,
that.
right? That seems to be what yeah, where they're going, and I don't buy it because I don't think like I guess we both agree. He didn't
Yeah.
really make the wrong choice. He made the only choice I feel like that was available
Right.
to
And
him.
actually, that whole scene was so powerful when he jumps out of the window and then you see all of the infected coming down
Oh God, yeah,
the hill.
terrifying.
And like that is such an incredibly shot scene with him running.
Hmm.
It's really, really well done.
Yeah,
And that's one of the scenes I was talking about. Like I forgot that whole opening sequence of events, and I thought that they did a really good job on that.
yeah,
That was just a nice opener,
yeah, and they managed to kill everybody else that we've just met in the
right?
cast,
Instantly.
including the poor guy who was like already at the boat trying to untie it. Like the only other guy with the preservation instinct didn't make it. So Robert Carlyle is playing this guy Don, who's kind of the lead in a way, the male lead. It's a much more ensemble cast because also then the kids kind of become the leads, and Jeremy Renner is also a lead for a while, and so is Rose Byrne, who plays Scarlet. And just to quickly talk about the casts, so
Great
Don is
cast.
Robert Carlyle, amazing, yeah, like hard to look at him and not think Trainspotting or Full Monty, but
Well, and think about this. I mean, look at this cast compared to the cast of 28 Days Later, which were basically all unknowns. So this is like, even though a lot of these characters are in the beginning of this is an earlier film for them. It's
yeah,
still
true.
an insane cast.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
But yeah,
Idris Elba is this is probably his first movie. I feel like, or maybe not, but it definitely feels that way. So yeah, Robert Carlyle, who had a few films under his belt at this point, he's basically the draw, right? He's the
yeah,
one who you're like, oh, okay, I've seen him in 3 or 4 films, and so Rose Byrne, who I feel like has just recently gotten meteor with things like Bridesmaids and Neighbors. I don't know
well,
if you've
she
seen
was
those.
also in wasn't she in Damages?
The TV show.
I think so.
I never saw that.
I did not see it either, but I know that that's one of the things that she is known for, or that's what started her, sort of on her
Yeah. Well, now I feel
started her
like
on her way, basically.
when I see her now, I think comedic female lead in like a Seth Rogen movie. He's kind of, or like a Ron Apatow. And then Jeremy Renner, who this is pre Hurt Locker, I assume.
This was pre-Hurt Locker, but he was already in. He was in a couple of things, but this is definitely early on. 'Cause
Yeah,
look at how young he looks. Oh
yeah,
my
he looks pretty
gosh.
young. Harold Perrineau, who I've already waxed about on this podcast about how much I think he's awesome, and he's got a pretty big role now on Constantine. I mean, maybe we knew that already because he was in the pilot, but he's in it a lot more than I kind of anticipated. Which
Not like Z Nation.
not like Z Nation, which lies. It was all lies.
Lies. Yes.
And then Catherine McCormack, who plays Don's wife, Robert Carlyle's wife, who was Braveheart's wife
Yep.
and had a similarly unfortunate end.
She never has a happy ending.
No.
Poor Miss McCormick.
And then the two kids have the best names, I think, in all of acting. Their real names, their names in the movie are Tammy and Andy, but the actors' names are Imogen Poots
I know.
and
Right?
and Macintosh Muggleton.
When I saw their names, I was like, "There's no way these can be real names. They sound like they're out of Harry Potter."
Well, obviously, yeah. But that's them, and they're good. I don't think the girl has a very serene look on her face in parts of the film that I thought was pretty cool. And they actually do well because like I said, a lot of the film focuses on them for probably the third act. But anyway, so that's the cast that we're so enamored with, even though the story kind of drops the ball. And after that first scene in the farmhouse and then running away from the farmhouse, I mean, I was super pumped, right? Like that's a hell of an adrenaline scene, and it sets up some. You're not really sure what it sets up because then the real setup happens after the credits.
Right. But I mean, that initial scene when I first saw it in the theater, I was like, okay, all right, maybe I was wrong. And then that changed. Um, but mainly because they just messed with the whole canon
Hmm.
after that. So So the premise of this film, as opposed to the first one, is that you're really seeing what the recovery is from the infection of the population. So you're really seeing how London is trying to rebuild itself and
But not.
repopulate.
Do you feel like London is trying to rebuild itself, or this was part of the my reaction to it is like, why is the United States rebuilding London? Why aren't there more British people involved?
Well, I mean, I think the implication is that basically the majority of the British military was killed off during the first wave, so they didn't have the means to do it.
I guess, yeah.
That was my guess. That's what I filled in my head.
Hmm.
And so they needed help to do what they needed to do. But that said, so think about it this way: they give us this very quick sort of explanation in the beginning pieces of this, talking about how many weeks or days have passed and what has happened in London at this time. And the thing is, with something like this virus is extraordinarily infectious. Um, and anytime somebody's infected with it, they immediately start like throwing up blood, like bodily fluids are everywhere, which is how the transmission happens. So it's incredibly catchy. So the idea that they're going to be able to rebuild or make sure that nobody else can get this, even in the short amount of time, I think it's clearly 28 weeks later, it just seems so crazy and unlikely to me. Like all the things that they would need to do to actually bring people back in to populate England doesn't make any sense to me. Did you feel that too?
I bought it up until they get Alice in the hospital ward. I was buying it because there's nobody left alive. How I mean, and this thing only lives in living tissue, right? And there's no living
Well,
tissue in England.
well,
So,
it does live in living tissue, but it also is still residual in the fluids. So
but
I
what
think,
fluids are still around after 6 months?
well, there's still like blood and
It'll be dry.
there's still it doesn't transmit to animals, but there's like lots of rats and dogs running around. Um, so I don't know. To me it seems like it's such a crazy thing to go on that they pretty much just need to burn everything in order to start over.
But that's one of the scenes that I liked in this was the looking out of the monorail when they're giving all this exposition to begin the film, and seeing the guys like pulling the biohazard bags out of the buildings
Hmm.
and putting them in the middle. I thought that was actually kind of cool that you do get to see what does this look like. It reminded me of kind of the second act in The Stand where they're doing this
Yeah.
in Boulder, Colorado.
Hmm.
So to me, this resonated with me in a good way. And while I hear what you're saying, I think there was just enough suspension of disbelief for me to just kind of go on and be like, okay, yeah, like no, everybody's dead, they've all starved to death, and and as long as nobody leaves the safe zone, then we're fine.
Yeah, except for those pesky kids.
And we would have gotten away with it too.
Um, I just, in the stand, it didn't bother me because all those people that were left had immunity.
Right, that's true. That's very
So
true.
in this case, nobody does. So the minute you get it, there's not like there's any built-in immunity. They haven't found a vaccine. So that just kept bothering me because I'm kind of like, you're not even no matter what, it's going to be so hard to disinfect this entire. No matter how many Clorox wipes you have, you're not going to be able to like totally make this a safe place to live.
This
I'm
no, you're
not. I'm
making a
not.
very good point here because six
I'm
months
not
is
trying
not a
to.
long time.
I'm not trying to reveal the germaphobe in me or anything, but
What's their hurry? Just because they have refugee camps in the U.S. and in mainland Europe, refugee camps sit around forever. Like 6 months is like a blink of an eye in the life of a refugee camp. So especially in a rich in rich countries, although all of the all of the financial power of England disappearing within like a week must have been really bad
yeah,
for the
for the
global economy.
world.
Yeah, but
Um, but
still.
also, just 6 months, they're all in this green zone. I just feel like, and maybe I'm just being totally crazy about it, but the idea of bringing these refugees back, knowing everything that had happened, I feel like the protocols you're going to have in place would have been a lot more stringent than anything that we saw here. There were way
True.
too many loopholes for people to get through.
Yeah.
The
They would
kids,
have
the
been in a
fact,
bubble, right? They would have been in some
yeah.
kind of bubble.
And I also don't think that they would have brought back quite as many people because they're going to want a very controlled rehabilitation process, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, and you're definitely not going to let those kids come back into the zone yet.
Yeah.
Just not happening. But
No.
okay, for the movie, we'll deal with it.
So, okay, you're poking some holes in the general premise here, really early on. But I agree, 100%. So then we have our family reunion now that the kids are back, and it turns out that Don is and they make a big point of him being like, "No, I've got all access," and I kind of hate this in watching it again because
Oh, I really hate it.
when he, yeah, obviously when he becomes infected, he finds his way into places that he really shouldn't, and before he becomes infected.
And also, he suddenly knows how to do this, which is another change in the canon. I don't know that we ever saw the infected
Problem solving? No.
Yeah, problem solving and using tools,
Yeah.
let alone having enough wherewithal to hold a key card and actually slide it. Like they're jerking around. One of the key pieces of this virus is that their bodies are all like tense and jerking around and spasming.
Yeah.
I just don't think that there's any possibility that an infected is going to be able to use this key card. So that just pissed me off beyond all belief.
Wait, does he actually use the key card when he gets into the big room?
Yeah, he's using it everywhere.
Didn't realize that. I thought he was just wandering around. But yeah, it's annoying that they set this up so they telegraph this. You know, it's just too blatant. Yeah. And then, yeah, as we've kind of already alluded, the kids are the catalyst for everything going terribly. And then bringing Alice back into the green zone or whatever we're calling it, District 1. She has so few. She's strapped to a gurney. They haven't figured out yet that she's a live subject.
Right, but there's still no way that everybody isn't in some kind of a crazy hazmat suit around her.
Oh, absolutely.
The fact that they have the head of their medical research, who's played by Rose Byrne, they have her just in like gloves and scrubs.
Yeah, and just drawing blood.
Give me a break. I'm just like,
crazy.
no way with a virus like this.
Yeah.
No way. And they're also not going to have 10 people in the room with her. Like, it's probably going to be an extraordinarily... I mean, and I think even strapped to the gurney isn't enough. They'll probably have her in some sort of a Hannibal Lecter outfit. You know,
Yeah,
there's no way.
also in a bubble. Right, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So this was totally knowing what you're dealing with, and even how the Scarlet character, who's Rose Byrne's character, is talking to... I just keep calling him Idris Elba because he's awesome. But even how they talk to each other, they're both fully aware of how dangerous this virus is.
Mm-hmm.
So I just don't see them both standing nonchalantly by, which is kind of what they're doing here.
Yeah.
Watching her draw blood. Like any jerk of a moment, like of a movement by this character or by this like virus carrier, and you're going to infect everybody in that room. Like, it's just seems so ridiculously unlikely to me. So yet another angry moment for me.
Yeah, so definitely not enough protection and not enough considerations being made for the virulence of this infection in the hospital area. And then also, once shit hits the fan, their containment policy is put everybody in one giant room, which makes also no sense. They should be like locked, maybe four people to a tiny room each. Yeah,
I actually have in my notes, what is the worst way to contain something like this and stop, like, get people to start a panic? Why don't you put them in one huge room and shut off the lights?
It was absurd. Yeah.
Totally absurd. And not just that, but okay, so you're bringing back people to repopulate London. You don't think that they're going to go through every single safety protocol with every single one of these people? They would be like a machine. You're not going to just be bringing back just sort of everyman and not give them what the rules are. Everybody in this facility would be part of the machine and part of the idea that we're going to do this and we're going to do this safely. I just don't buy the whole mass hysteria thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I buy it in the context that they show it in this film, but I just don't buy it in the context of that this is what the plan would be. And you're absolutely right. They should each be in their own, like, the protocol would be go back to your little, whatever they are, cells, and there's like a lockdown.
Yeah, go to your apartment, and then we've already seen the snipers looking into all of their windows. So you go to
Right.
your apartment, and you have like an extra hardcore door, and if you get infected, then the snipers will shoot you through your windows. I feel like that is the most, clean hands approach to this
Well, right. So why are you suddenly putting them all into this room?
that nobody can see into. Yeah,
Right. And that you have no idea what's going on. It just was super stupid.
yeah,
And then the other piece of this, so say, okay, so Alice is found and you bring her back to the facility. There is no way that you don't turn off the key card of the Don character. Like in an instant, you can turn off his access to everything.
mm-hmm.
And you certainly are not going to be letting him wander around. People would be on him like white on rice, like they were not going to be letting him wander around that facility and suddenly wander into her room. And there's just no, even if he has all access, he's not going to have all access to a room like that if there is like high level
Maybe
security things going on.
that's where they keep the mops. So he has to.
Yeah, within the quarantine room. No, I just all these little things were the things that really took away from the film.
Yeah.
And I feel like there were ways that you could have handled it where you didn't have to do this. Do you know what I
And
mean? Like it
in
just
a
seems
yeah.
so sloppy and lazy. Quite
And in a way, other than they still have infected out during the day, this is the only part of the film that is terrible. Like just the premise for how it broke out and then spread into the general population, and it happens very quickly. And then the rest of the film is actually kind of okay. It's kind of
Yeah,
weird and linear, but the beginning is really good. The end is fine. The middle is just dumb. Like just
yeah,
and
totally dumb.
it's rare. I mean, the third act is fine for what it is. Usually that's where a movie will fall down on its face. It's like, oh, that's the best way you could think of to end this. In this case, this was the best way they could come up with to like launch the dramatic element of the story, and it was just not believable.
Agreed. Agreed. And as I said, it just felt sloppy, and it felt very sloppy. And I think mostly it felt sloppy compared to 28 Days Later, because 28 Days Later was such a revolutionary idea. Like Danny Boyle launched it. That's why people got so excited about this genre. Basically, he launched it, and then to see this and to see sort of the very lazy storytelling, I just was really disappointed on that point. But you're right, the third act was not as bad, which is actually very surprising.
Yeah. And the third act kind of just consists of Jeremy Renner making friends with Scarlett and the kids for
Yep.
no real reason other than suddenly he's like, I don't want to shoot civilians anymore because
I know.
that's part of the containment plan is just shoot everybody. And he's like, you know what? I'm not going to do that. And then he decides he's going to save their lives. And then, sure, we don't need like him to really go into why he's doing it, I guess.
Well, we know he's got a little crush on her, on Scarlett, so that's part of it, I suppose. And he keeps talking about the Harold Perrineau character being a family man, and that's something he envies. So
Oh.
I think you're supposed to loosely assume that may be part of why he's befriending them, but it isn't made very clear, so it does seem like a mystery.
Yeah. Either way, he kind of fills that role until
He
he
doesn't.
goes out in a ball of fire.
Right.
And actually, like everybody who tries to help these kids ends up dying in a terrible way, it seems. Mostly because unknowing, or by the end of the film, what's the kid's name? The boy,
Sam.
Sam. He's basically infected
Oh, no, sorry, Andy.
or
Andy,
whatever.
not Sam.
Sam
Sam is the girl, right?
Sam is some other person. I don't even know. But he's infected, and so I mean, that's the ultimate end of this film is that he exports the virus because all it takes is a little kiss, a little peck on the lips. But yeah, so everybody else dies. Like Jeremy Renner gets burned by the soldiers. Scarlet gets bludgeoned to death with a rifle butt, which is also very, very not infection. It doesn't seem like the way that she would go,
No, no.
or that the way that that would go down. Plus, it's a little bit of a stretch that Dawn, Robert Carlyle's character, is just everywhere.
Yeah, and he suddenly has this tracking ability
Yeah,
to track down his kids. Like, it's really weird. Again, this is another thing that truly bothers me about the fact that they messed with the canon, because they did. They basically rewrote the entire thing. Like, suddenly he's able to track his progeny.
yeah. But the subway, the underground scene is cool with the night vision, and it's very wreck.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You know,
That was kind of cool.
yeah. But that was cool.
I really loved the shot of Wembley Stadium.
Hmm.
Like, I thought that was pretty cool. That their whole plan is for the Harold Perrineau character Flynn. The whole plan is for him and Doyle. They'll meet up in Wembley Stadium. So that was I really loved that scene, just where the helicopter's like right in the middle of the stadium. That was kind of cool.
Yeah,
But
there was a lot. I mean, they tried to recreate a lot of the London is empty and this is, the that kind of stuff. I don't feel like it ever really had the same impact it did in 28 Days Later, though.
no, definitely not.
Other than when the kids are out on their moped riding through empty streets and streets covered in like detritus of an abandoned city. Those were powerful, I think.
Those
But
were powerful, but still not as powerful as that opening scene in 28 Days Later.
yeah,
The abandoned London was so incredible, and I think that was such a just the visuals of that really drew the audience in. And I think that this just you're not I think they knew they wouldn't be able to compete with it, but they tried a little bit to at least show what the aftermath would be.
yeah,
But it still wasn't quite, it didn't have the same effect.
yeah. But yeah. So I don't know. Like, do you buy that Flynn would suddenly have a change of heart after saying to Doyle multiple times, "Just you, don't bring those other people." But then he has
Well,
a change of heart.
um well, I do think that he has a lot of loyalty to Doyle. We do know that he's a family man, and he says these things, but then when faced with two kids in a field, I don't know that he's going to be able to say no. I just think that yeah, I know what you're saying, but I also think that faced with the actual people, he's not able to do that. Um, that said, the weird, creepy looks they're giving him in that field would give me pause about taking them anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just be honest. They look
Well,
totally destroyed and terrifying.
and one terrifying thing that this film does do, and I does it pretty well, is only one or two people even understand what the kid is and what his mother was, and they're dead. And all of the evidence has been destroyed in the lab when they did the firebombing. Right? And they don't actually say that out loud. They do a shot of
Showing
the
it boiling and all
yeah,
that
the
stuff.
test tubes exploding. But everybody else who understood what was going on is dead. And it was only two people before everything went to shit because that part of the movie was dumb. But so I mean, as an audience member, I was like, "No, just shoot him.
Yeah, no,
Don't
totally.
do it." But yeah, I kind of like the way that played out. And then, but yeah, I don't know, like if because Flynn is a family man, I would have thought that the instinct for self-preservation would be potentially stronger. Are we supposed to believe that he just believes he's gonna always protect the innocent? Potentially.
I don't know. And then there's the whole, with the ending of this film, it's clearly trying to set up for a sequel,
A trequel.
a trequel, with showing that now the virus is out basically across
The,
Europe.
the virus is at the Eiffel Tower.
Yep. Although, I mean, you do have the Channel Train tunnel, so I would have imagined that there's no way they would have been able to really contain it even from the first outbreak.
Potentially. True. I mean, they could have just concreted it up, though. Would have had time, I would assume.
Maybe. But anyway, I know that you found. Do you know when this interview was? Like, where they had started talking about potential sequels, or was this just sort of a joke?
That was on the 14th of January of this year.
Huh.
I
Well,
mean,
that's
they've been
interesting.
talking about it off and on. This is from the Wikipedia page.
Oh no,
They've been
they've been
talking
talking
about
about
it
this forever. Like,
forever, but then this is a recent conversation with Garland and Boyle, and or at least Garland is talking about having a conversation with Danny Boyle, and saying it's complicated, but we want to do it, and we're talking about it seriously.
hmm,
And so, like 28 months later, might be happening.
that'd be interesting. It'd be really great to get Cillian Murphy back, or Cillian Murphy.
Hmm. I don't know what he's been up to lately.
Oh, well, he's been in Batman and tons of other stuff. Oh, and what was that? It's the show. It's about.
Peaky Blinders.
Yes, that's what I was thinking
I
about.
keep seeing that on Netflix, but I haven't looked at it.
Everybody keeps recommending that I see this, but I have not yet seen it. So, but no, I think it would be nice to get him back. But I don't know where they would go with this. Given maybe they would just mess with the canon again. Who knows?
I told you that I'd read some of the graphic novel of 28 Days Later,
Hmm.
and that is actually set after the first film too, and follows the character of Selena. Is it Selena or Serena? The woman
Selena, I think.
Selena, yeah, and it's basically that she has escaped London or escaped England, but then volunteers to go back and to find some specific people who are still apparently surviving. So I don't know that would work given the way where the films have gone, but if that actress was available, and it's like how many years later, I
Right.
don't know if she'd be up for like a role to do that, but
Well, I mean, then again, I could absolutely see them just rebooting this and forgetting that 28 weeks later ever happened,
might be the
which they
smart way to go.
which they have done for other franchises. So I could absolutely see them doing that and being like, okay, so maybe we just didn't do exactly what we should have done here, so we're gonna forget that ever existed
Yeah.
and just come up with something else, which I would be okay with.
Yeah. I mean, as long as whatever erases the thing that came before it is, good. How many freaking Hulk and Spider-Man movies have there
Exactly.
been? But
Exactly.
none of those have, I don't know, none of them are super memorable because there's so many of them to me now. But okay, so critically, this film did not bad actually, 71% on Rotten Tomato.
No, it did all right. I didn't, it had some really good scenes. I did like even though I hated the premise for some of the panic and the outbreak scenes, they still did a pretty good job with them. As we said, it has a great cast.
Yeah.
I just feel again, it's just very sloppy in terms of some of the storytelling, and I expected a lot more. Even though Danny Boyle was not necessarily fully attached to this, I mean, he was semi-attached to this production. I would have expected a lot more given. I don't want to. Well, I will say it, the rabid fandom of 28 Days Later. I would have thought that they would have been a lot more careful with what
Yeah.
they did with the
With the
sequel.
legacy. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Um, well, domestically, at least in the United States, it made 28.6 million. I don't have any information on what the budget was, but it was good. It must have been hefty.
No, it
And
was a
then
very hefty budget for this.
worldwide, they made $64 million. And I have to assume that they, made back what they put into it, if they're even talking about another film,
Right.
or they just believe so, strongly in the concept that they're willing to go back and do it again. But I don't know. I would definitely welcome a chance to go back to zombie infested England or France or wherever they
Or
decide to
France.
take it. Yeah.
Agreed. Agreed. So, I still enjoyed rewatching this, and it made me appreciate some of the filmmaking that they did here.
Yeah.
I think part of the frustration is that as you're watching it, there's parts of it where you're like, this could have been so much more successful if they chose to do this rather than that. But, we're not the filmmakers, so we can't really.
We can only talk about it after the fact.
We can only talk about it with hindsight. But,
My
Yeah.
hindsight would also have liked more British actors pretending to be
Yeah.
British, like Idris Elba could have been an English general back from Afghanistan or
Well,
something, you
that
know?
was also, I found that to be incredibly weird.
Yeah. What, the fact that he was pretending to be American?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and you know what? Even if you've got the American military assisting
Call it
with,
NATO, you know?
yeah, call it that or whatever, but you would have more of a British cast, wouldn't you?
You would
It
think.
it felt like there should be more. So, anyway, but still a fun watch, a fun rewatch, and I don't know. I don't know what to say about it. Like I think I really wanted to like it, and I still, even though I knew what had happened in it, I still wanted to like it more. I was hoping for more of a, oh, I forgot how wonderful this was, and still I was just like, I can't believe they did this. But yeah.
I will admit I will watch this again. You know, like maybe do a marathon at some point and watch the first one, watch this one. It's not bad enough that I don't want to
Oh
kind
no,
of go
it's not.
back there. You know, there's still
No, no,
those
no.
scenes
It's
of
not. There isn't. There isn't the problem with this film where you're just like, I can't believe they even bothered to make this. There's definitely not that issue. There's some really, really good scenes, and they're really, you're stressed out watching this.
hmm
There's very, very stressful scenes, but yeah. So, I would watch it in a marathon if they came out with 28 months later.
yeah. That would be something. Anyway, so I think we don't really have much more to say about it
Nope,
though.
that's it. That's it.
But thank you for discussing this with me, HA. And what is it that we're going to be talking about the next time we get together?
Well, we talked about reviewing this a very long time ago, but why don't we review Frankenstein's Army, which came out in 2013?
Frankenstein's Army, which appears to be somewhat Nazi related. Sign me up.
Big surprise, big surprise. Dead Snow 2 is coming out at some point as well, isn't it?
That's already out.
Is it out?
Uh-huh.
Well, we
Yup.
will have to review that as well.
Yeah, we might have to just go through a European themed zombie films, like, period.
Oh, that's
Like
right. Red versus Dead. That's the Dead Snow 2.
uh-huh.
Wow. Okay, but next time, Frankenstein's Army. So thank you, zombie fans, for tuning in. Let us know if there's anything you'd like us to review or your opinions about 28 Weeks Later. And until next time, ciao.
Yeah, and if you do want to let us know about your opinions, you can email us.
They know it.
You know it, but do it. Reanimatedpodcast@gmail.com. Bye bye, everybody.